welcome to Nightmare Stories of the Other Side. Joining us tonight, we have Sophia Temperilli, a 25-year-old paranormal investigator and podcast host. She started investigating at only 8 years old after attending a ghost tour aboard the infamously haunted Queen Mary. By age 12, Sophia started her own podcast, The Ghost Host, where she continues to interview renowned figures in the paranormal world to this day. Sophia recounts living in a haunted home in the book Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal, and she has been featured in Ghost Magazine. Welcome in, Sophia. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hey, my name is Sophia Temperilli. I am 25 years old. I've been in the paranormal field, as you said, since I was 8, so going on, I think, like 18 years now, in May. And I've been a radio host for 13 years. I believe it'll be 14 years in June. So a pretty long time. I'm the host of the Ghost Host show. It was on Blog Talk Radio, but recently that site went away, so now we are on Spotify and I do investigations, but mainly for people in the field, they will see my interviews with other investigators, demonologists, cryptozoologists, people from like all walks of life within the paranormal.
All right. So let's just start back at the beginning. So tell us
Mhm.
about your experiences aboard the Queen Mary that really, wanted you to get into this field.
Yeah, so I mean, I think for me, living in a haunted house, I think I've had experiences from before I can remember. So I think I've always had kind of that ingrainment in the field. But when I was 8, my parents, they've always been more Adams family inclined. So for their 10-year wedding anniversary, they wanted to do something different, and they took a tour on the RMS Queen Mary, which was hosted by a psychic named Peter James, who was well known through Fox sightings back in the 90s, and that's what they used to watch while they were dating. So they went on the tour, and for some reason, I just got really jealous. I was like, why can't I go? Why am I not going on the tour? And my parents are like, okay. So after they went on their tour, for their anniversary, Peter would always give out his information after every tour, and they emailed him and said, hey, um, our 8-year-old daughter wants to go on one of these investigations. Is it safe for her to go? And he said there's over 500 ghosts on this ship. All of them are my friends. Bring her along, and we'll have her call out to Jackie, the ghost girl in the first class swimming pool area of the Queen Mary. So I went a month after my parents in May of 2007, which would be Peter's final tour. And I had some experiences that night, but I just really loved it. I mean, it's incredible when you're investigating. Not only are you trying to connect with these spirits, but also usually you're in these really amazing and interesting locations and kind of a different setting than you would see from day-to-day life. And so I fell in love with the field, and at the end of Peter's tour, he asked my father to co-author his autobiography, Heaven Can You Hear Me? And that really cemented us in the field. So it went from that tour to my parents kind of being thrust into it, with my dad helping to carry on Peter's life story and legacy.
All right. So let's see where do I want to jump into? So you said that you lived in a haunted house. Did you have any experiences there that you can remember?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty constant. I mean, I think I had experiences from before I can remember. Um, I think I probably experienced things when I was very young because my parents and my grandmother told me that when I was like old enough to walk, not old enough to really communicate, I would stand with my back against the door into the garage, frozen, and it would take my mother coming over and actually touching my hand for me to actually move away from that spot. And I don't remember any of that. And then fast forward to when I was 9 years old, a year after we were in the paranormal, I started feeling like I was being watched constantly. It felt like the walls, ceiling, everything was covered in eyes. And Then one day I saw a man standing in my parents' closet and I knew this wasn't a real person. So I told my mom, I said, "Hey, there's a man in your closet." And she knew I would have been talking about a ghost. And my dad didn't believe me at all, which I understand. He grew up in the house as a child until the age of 9, and then they moved back in later on. And my mom didn't know what to think, so she didn't tell me I was wrong, but she also didn't really know what to say. And one day when she was putting on her makeup, she heard three knocks from the inside of her closet door. And my parents grabbed an EVP recorder and we caught voices, and everything really ramped up from there. This particular spirit was mainly focused on women, so really men who came in the house didn't have any experiences, but with women, they were feeling uncomfortable because he was kind of following the women in the home, stalking us. He watched us sleep, things like that. He threw a piece of metal at my mother's back, but that was before we realized the house was haunted.
Interesting. So, yeah, that sounds like quite a bit.
Yeah, it was a daily occurrence. I mean, for me, it was really hard. Like I said, I had lived in the house my whole life. My dad had grown up there until he was the age of 9. He was adopted, but his adoptive father, was a paranoid schizophrenic. So he had to leave the home. And then after my grandfather passed away, the house went to my parents. Now he was not the spirit that was haunting the home. This was someone else, but it was just really hard, I think, for my dad to kind of picture that, especially since he wasn't experiencing it. And after we realized it was haunted, my mom's friends came forward and said, "Hey, your house always creeped me out, but people obviously aren't going to tell you that before your
Mhm.
house is haunted." And it was really hard going through that at such a young age. I had those experiences between the age of 9 to 11, and then we moved out. But it was definitely like being trapped.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. So going to like investigations, when did you like, aside from the Queen Mary, when did you really have your first investigation?
It was the Queen Mary. I've
Yeah.
investigated there like probably hundreds of times, I feel like at this point. So that was really, since it's so close to my house, it was really like kind of a home base where my family and I would always go and investigate. The tour I went on that night, it was a full investigation. It was with the psychic, it was a full investigation. And after my dad wrote the book, we were going to a lot of events that were being hosted on the Queen Mary, and they would always have after investigations as well. So I'm pretty sure probably for like the first year it was probably totally the Queen Mary. And I don't remember what one would be after that. Um, but that's kind of like the main staple in my life, because I did start so young. I've investigated obviously more places, but not as many as some other investigators because I had to go to school, I had to graduate, so I wasn't going out every weekend like a lot
Yeah.
of investigators because I was 8 when I started.
So for like junior investigators, like anywhere from like 8 to like say 16, like, for them just starting out, like what kind of advice would you have for them?
I would definitely say take it slow. If you're feeling uncomfortable, don't push yourself. I have said this even recently for adult investigators, because it is hard when you're young and going through those experiences, whether you're living in a haunted house or going to a place. It's kind of about what is comfortable for you and moving forward, and just making sure you're respectful to the spirits, and going in there. I'm not saying you have to be like an interrogation serious, but just go in there, be respectful, and be respectful of the property you're at, and just kind of take care of yourself and your mental health in that state. And that really goes for anyone of any age, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Natalie, she's been what now, investigating since July.
Hmm.
And she's had quite a excuse me, interesting experiences in her short time.
No, it definitely is. And I think the thing too is like the ghost in my house was focused on women, but depending on where you're going, different people, different ages can generate different responses. That's why when on my first tour, Peter wanted me to call out to the ghost child on the Queen Mary because we would have been of similar ages. So it's I think kids can have a lot of different responses than an adult can get because, if it's a child spirit, they're probably going to feel more comfortable around someone of a similar age range.
Hmm.
Yeah, that would fit where like we were on our first investigation. We were in a schoolhouse and I was using the dowsing rods. I was getting
They would
absolutely
not
nothing.
move.
But when she was using them, they were just like, going left and
Yeah, we
right.
had like a whole bunch of equipment set up, and it's
Mhm.
like the equipment would only go off when I would ask the questions.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely happens. Like I said, in my haunted house, my dad didn't have any experiences. He had some towards the end, but honestly, I think my dad has long hair, and the ghost had climbed up my loft bed ladder, watched me sleep one night, so he decided to go up there. I think when my dad was turning, the ghost thought he was a girl. So that was like the only time he had an experience, but I mean, I think a lot of times too, it comes with the openness that children have too, or young adults, and they're not so jaded when it comes to things, or they have more of an open-mindedness than I think a lot of people have when life comes. You have your mind on other things, and younger people are able to kind of open themselves up a little bit more because they don't have the things that adults do.
Hmm.
So like what are some other locations that you can remember investigating?
Yeah, so I've done the Glen Tavern Inn. I had some really crazy experiences there. I've investigated a ghost town in Montana. Um I went to the La Prisma Mission. Let me see, Pasadena Playhouse. We did the Millennium Biltmore Hotel in LA. Um I've done a cemetery. There's Nordhoff Cemetery, which is near the Glen Tavern Inn. I investigate a cemetery near my house. Um, Recently, this one was in a news article, so I can mention it now. But I investigated Edith Wharton's house. She's an author. She was alive during the early 1900s. She wrote The Age of Innocence, and I recently investigated her house in Massachusetts. So that was
Oh,
pretty cool investigation.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never most of those places I haven't even heard of. So
Yeah,
so I have
the
to add those to my list.
yeah, Edith's house was my first investigation I have done on the East Coast. The farthest I've gone for investigating, I would say was Tombstone, but it was hot there. I don't do well in the heat. So I tried to investigate the birdcage, but like I was trying not to pass out every 2 seconds, so that did not I don't even count that as an investigation because that was like not even working. It's not working for me. My parents got to go to Alcatraz though. I'm still really jealous of that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've
So
had
far.
like two or three episodes where like the bucket list location was Alcatraz. I'm like, yeah, trying to get in there is probably not going to happen.
I mean, they do a lotto, or they did.
yeah, I think they still do.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, that's how my parents got in. My mom's best friend was Debbie Constantino from Ghost Adventures, and she had won the lotto and invited my parents, and they told me no.
Uh,
I was 9 though, so I guess I
Yeah.
understand. The Boy Scouts spend the night there, so I'm like, little, little sus.
uh,
Yeah, I don't know what she's doing back there. She's
Trying to
cat.
think of other places too, but like I said, 18 years in the field and starting young, your brain kind of starts to
Right.
dive on memories.
Yeah.
have you been to like the Whaley House or anything like that out there?
No, I
Nope.
haven't. I pretty much all the events we would go to were in the LA area. So I've been to San Diego, but we never investigated. It was like to go to SeaWorld.
Sure.
Yeah, and then But the Glen Tavern Inn is like a really awesome location. So if you guys are looking for a cool place, I would definitely recommend that. I had one of my weirdest experiences there. And it's just like kind of odd in the town it's in. It definitely stands out. Oh, and there's a place called Heritage Square. I investigated there as well. That's in LA.
So Natty's probably wondering, since you're out in
Oh,
California, you want to ask,
no.
have you ever been to the Winchester Mystery House?
No, I have not. Yeah, it's like I think like 7 hours from me.
Oh, it's
So
that
it's
far, really?
yes, it's in San Jose, California. So I have not been there. It looks like a great place. I would probably fall out of a door, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, I'm I'm very clumsy, so I'm quite sure I would do that. My aunt I think pointed it out to me when she was driving me to San Francisco. She took me to a lot of places where there were haunted locations near it, never took me to any of them. Mildly gaslighted me. She didn't believe in the paranormal and then would tell you she had an experience, so she was like real iffy on that. She yeah, she took me on a college road trip and I think she pointed out like, "Oh, the Winchester Mystery House is over there." And then she would take me to San Francisco and I'd be like, "Oh, I've never been to Alcatraz." She's like, "No, I took you." And I'm like, "Nope, wasn't me." She'd be like, "Oh, that's my son." It's like, yeah, I don't know how you confuse the two of us. We look very different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I seen Alcatraz driving over the bridge one time, but that's as close as it got to it.
Yeah, she showed it to me from like the pier, and she's like, "Oh, there's Alcatraz." I'm like, "Never been there." She's like, "I took you," and then she looked up tours, and she's like, "Oh, they're full," and I'm like, "Awesome, thank you, Nina." And then when we were staying in Monterey, she took me to this like Victorian looking B&B. And I looked at the front desk guy and I'm like, "Is it haunted?" And you could just see her looking at him like, "Don't encourage her." And he said no, and he was being genuine about that. I don't remember the place's name at all. And then my dad found it on like a top 10 list of haunted places in Monterey, and I'm like, she gaslit me this entire time.
Uh,
She's like very on brand for her, very on brand.
Okay, let's talk a little bit. So you started your podcast when you were what? Was it 11 or 12? I can't remember, sorry.
Yeah, I was 12. I think I probably started harassing my parents about it at 11. I think it took me like 6 months to convince them. But I started my podcast at 12. After my dad co-authored Peter's book, the site founder of whyparanormal.com, Rob Sarek, had been saying, "Hey, do you want to have a radio show?" And my dad's like, "No, I don't. I don't want to do the research. I don't want to do any of that to have a radio show." Then I started harassing him at some point after that, because after living in a haunted house, I wanted to know if there was other people my age going through these experiences, and I wanted to find people like me. And so then my parents, who didn't think I would stick with it because I didn't stick with any sport, my father contacted Rob Sarek and said, "Hey, I don't want a radio show, but my 12-year-old daughter does." And he said, "Okay, let's try it out." And yeah, here I am 13, almost 14 years later. My first guest was Alexandra Holzer, Dr. Hans Holzer's daughter, and I was really lucky because we had met so many people at events, and they were very gracious to come on my show, which I had to try and archive some of them, and I was a little bit of a chaotic 12-year-old. I'm like, wow, thank you guys for coming on, because like, wow, jeez.
Right? So how many episodes do you think you've done over the years?
Probably close to 1,000, my parents estimated, because in the beginning, I think it was probably around the first 6 months, we were doing 2-hour shows and we would have one guest each hour. And then pretty much ever since then, unless it's holidays, we've had a show airing every single Saturday for 13 years. And then the site went down last year, so we were having some problems playing shows, but we would have archives always going up, and now we're on Spotify, so the shows sound a little bit better, and the site works.
So, like at any given time during a podcast, like what's the maximum number of guests you've had at one time?
Oh my gosh, I'm not sure. I know we've had quite a few teams on, so I would go with maybe five, just based on team size. But I'm not entirely sure because honestly, like with the radio in the beginning, I mean, it was a little bit hard to like tell the people apart just by their voices,
Yeah.
some of them. So there could have been more, but like when you start going off, when you don't have like a Zoom where you can see their faces,
Mhm.
you start going off over a certain number, it becomes like a little bit chaotic over the telephone.
I can imagine. Well, I was just asking because I'm kind of in talks with doing a podcast with the group here soon, and there are 14 of them.
Oh
Jeez.
yeah, that's a
I'm,
lot. That's a
I'm
lot.
just like, I was a little floored by that number. They go, "Do you think it'll work?" I'm like, "Well, I think we can do that many, but we're trying to get it from like where they can be all in one place, so we're not having to do like 14 screens."
Yeah, I would definitely say split it up some though, because when it's all on one line, that's where genuinely it gets confusing.
Yeah, because like they're saying,
It's
well, most of us live in the same household, but then the rest would be in house. I'm like, well, let's try to do it live from on location where like you're all there.
yeah. No, I think it's probably been five, but it's teams, they're a lot of fun to have on because you really get to hear all the differences, but yeah, um through I think the internet I think is a lot better, but back I mean I
Yeah,
would just do it on my cell phone back in the day. So when you're like this and you hear a bunch of people, it's very
yeah,
confusing. And then you have the lag and like people talking.
yeah. What was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought.
I don't know. I can't read your
I
mind.
know. I wish you could read my mind.
I don't wish I could read your mind.
But yeah, we did one podcast not too long ago from like an actual with a couple individuals that were at a location. So I
Mhm.
want to try to do more of those to see if we can get like the spirits to interact on the podcast, which would be really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that would be awesome. I know, like that's kind of the thing I think about too is when you're doing radio shows like that at a haunted location, what can you pick up? I have done like live interviews at events that were haunted at haunted locations, but I think when you're at an event you have too much background noise, but it would be
Yeah,
interesting to try and pick that up live and hear what the viewers might be listening and picking
right.
up.
Yeah, I know too. I have planned like some of our investigations this year do like on-site interviews and like certain
Mhm.
areas of the location to see if we can get anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, on-site interviews I think are really great. It was a lot of fun. When I would do them, my first time doing that was at a horror and film sci-fi festival called Shriek Fest when I was probably like only 3 months into my show. But it's definitely a different energy when you're out at either a haunted location or event live than, sitting in a room
Yeah.
doing the interviews.
So like what are some like notable guests that you remember that you've had on?
Yeah, so I've had on well, like I said, my first guest was Dr. Alex Dr. Hans Holzer's daughter, Alexandra Holzer, had on Debbie Constantino from Ghost Adventures, Nick Groff from Ghost Adventures. We've had on the cast of Kindred Spirits, Project Fear, uh, Dave Schrader, Cindy Keza, Shane Pittman, Patty Negri. I'm trying to think because it's a long list. Had on Glozell from YouTube, the Cinnamon Challenge woman, so that was pretty fun. Uh, Let me see here. We've had a lot of people on the Booth Brothers. Um, yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, this
Trying to
this
think.
one's jaw dropped over here when he said Project
Yeah.
Fear. She goes,
Uh,
if we could ever get them on a podcast, she goes, that'd be pretty awesome.
That's
mhm.
not, those were not even
Well,
close to my words.
okay, well, what were your words?
I remember, but it was not that. Those were your words.
Okay, well,
I
Would
had
be
on
pretty awesome.
Colin Brown too. He's a YouTuber, the Paranormal Files.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, I've had on some people trying to remember, but yeah, I interviewed Dakota for the first time back in I think 2016 or 17. And it was during the time he was promoting Trail to Terror, and
mhm.
so I talked to him about that, and then we had him on when he joined Ghost Adventures, when he started Destination Fear, all of that.
Yeah, she would probably fall over dead if we ever got Sam Colby on here.
oh, I
She
would
Yeah,
die.
Uh,
she's big Sam Colby follower
I'd probably
here.
faint.
yeah, my daughter is too.
yeah. I've definitely tried to get them on. I'm still gonna try at some point again, but glad that people didn't come on when Blog Talk Radio wasn't working because that would have been a little awkward.
But yeah, I told her, I go, I'll keep sending out emails and trying to get them on, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think my dad can relate to you there.
But we do have on Sunday night at 7 o'clock, we do have a podcast. I'm not for sure if you're familiar with who Becky Vickers is.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of her.
Yep. So she was just in their Skinwalker Ranch movie that just came out over the holidays.
No, that was back beginning of October.
Was it beginning of October?
Oh,
Was that
yeah.
long ago?
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't go see it, but anyways, she's going to be our guest Sunday night. So Natalie's really excited about that one.
That's super cool. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Speaking of Skinwalker, I also had on Dr. Travis Taylor from Skinwalker Ranch and Grant Wilson from Ghost Hunters. Just remembering like more people. Oh, Amy Allen from the Dead Files as well.
Uh,
But yeah, it's always fun just to reach out to different people and ask them if they want to be on the podcast, and probably 95% of the people have responded, and then
Mhm.
there's like the 5% that you don't hear back from. So I've gotten a lot of good response from it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, pretty much when I started my show and now, because I'm like, why change it, father? My dad's been the one booking the guests, and he had a lot of really good responses too. I think there's a lot of really friendly people in the paranormal
Yeah.
that, love to share ideas and communicate and, learn new things from each other. Just get to talk about the stuff they do.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit of your Women on the Fringe book?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate to be asked to be a part of Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal. It is a book that was written by Denise Agnew, Marie D. Jones, and Nicole Strickland, and it's basically a compilation of life stories and stories from women who are involved in the field of the paranormal. And they asked me to be a part of it, and I basically kind of put in there my life story, how I got started in the paranormal, how I started my radio show, what it was like living in a haunted house, and where I'm at now. So it's kind of just a short version of my life in a book. So, which I think is the easiest way because people are like, "Oh, it's so interesting you lived in a haunted house." It's like if you wrote it all down, it would probably be just like one page because it was constant, but it's more like watching. So it's very nice to be a part of someone else's book.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a short little bit.
And then also, I was going through your bio. So in the spring of 2024, you had an article in Ghosted magazine.
Yes. So right around the same time as Women on the Fringe came out, I was also really lucky to have an article written about me in Ghosted magazine, which is run by Michael Castro and April Bousset. April's a really great friend to myself and my family. And she wrote an article about me and my life, and just pretty much just had me in her magazine, which was awesome because she has a really well put together magazine, and has so many great people in the field. And she interviews like people all over too, so it's kind of like a broad spectrum. Like she had Elton Casti, who works with Sam and Colby sometimes. He has TFIL, so she has people that are more on the YouTube side, people who are actual investigators, just like kind of anyone and everyone in the paranormal.
Yeah, I know on about when are we at? End of February. I think in about a month.
Why are you looking up the dates
I
there?
don't know.
The
Anyways,
keyboard's not gonna tell you.
it's the dates right there
Where?
on the bottom. So
Yeah, that says.
Anyways, so I don't know if you're familiar with Ghost Buzz magazine.
I'm not sure that I am. I don't know.
Yeah, so Natalie is actually going to be featured in a junior
Mhm.
investigation article in that magazine here in about a month.
Oh, that's so awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, so our new friend Crystal Blevins out of Tennessee put me onto that magazine, and I reached out to the publisher and got her in. She had to do a little homework assignment, and
Calling it homework makes it sound boring.
well, it is. It's
Wasn't-
paranormal homework.
Yeah, but it wasn't boring.
And sent it in, and yeah, she'll be featured in that here coming up soon.
Well, that's super cool. I mean, that's really exciting. And I mean, again, congratulations on that. Good job for doing your paranormal homework. I was zoned out at the word homework back when I was actually in school, so probably doing better than me there.
Now this one, so like for when we're going to be doing our investigations, we like kind of like what Project Fear does. We'll be doing a little packet read. She's the one that's putting all the packets together, all the research and typing them out. And
I didn't start doing that until like my early 20s, so like just a little few years ago. So you're off to a way better start than me. I just kind of like Wikipedia'd it and hope for the best because my attention span was just like wasn't there. I'm like, I had to do work in high school. Don't make me do it. Now it's back. Now my attention span's a little bit more back.
But yeah, this is fun homework and fun research compared to middle school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well, you're trying to type out stuff for hours, and then you can't focus because you have a little sister upstairs just playing WWE that they stuffed animals and stuff. Will stop screaming. That's fun.
Yes, it is.
Very fun.
Okay, so moving on. So I am assuming your favorite location you've ever been to is the Queen Mary.
Yeah, you would definitely think that. It's not. I would definitely say it's Edith Wharton's house at the moment.
Okay.
Because I had such a great experience there. The Queen Mary is definitely nostalgic, but investigating it so many times, I'm more excited to go to new locations.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I would say the Glen Tavern Inn would have been probably my favorite. But just the memories I have at Edith Wharton's definitely puts it in the top spot now, and then Glen Tavern would be second.
So if you had to pick any location or a couple locations you haven't been to investigate, what would they be?
So I really love old movies and old Hollywood, so I would say the Roosevelt Hotel in, I think it's like Hollywood, might just be LA, I'm not sure, but in California, that one I think is great. Alcatraz, because I'm still extremely butthurt over the fact my parents got to go and I had to sit at home. I bought a pet while they were away though, so that really showed them. And also Poveglia Island seems great. When I was younger, I wanted to go to Island of the Dolls because I saw it on um Destination Truth, and then I saw it on Ghost Adventures with all the spiders coming out and decided I don't want to go there because I have arachnophobia. I'm sure Poveglia Island has spiders, I just haven't seen photos of them, so it's still on the list.
Yeah, I'm not a spider person either. So
Mm-mm.
luckily, when we were at Waverly Hills last July, I don't think I saw any spiders.
No spiders, but they had these weird jumpy bugs.
I didn't see any of those. All I remember
I
is
saw like 50 of them.
Well, all I remember, but I didn't
You didn't
see
go all the way. They were
is sorry.
they were at the bottom. You only went like a quarter of the way down because
Oh.
you were lazy. I went all the way down and all the way back up. That's like 700 feet total.
Okay.
Up and downhill.
Now she's talking about the death tunnel at Waverly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of walking.
The only thing I remember, I didn't really see them at the time until after I got back on the Phasm camera, is the bats.
I saw them.
Oh, that's cool. I don't like things flying around my head, so I probably won't want them flying around my head, but bats are super cool.
Yes, but it's like, see how it's like all come right over your head, next to your ear, and but yeah, I didn't even notice it. But so one thing they say when you're at Waverly, don't use flashlights.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way. I was walking to look for him because I was with my mom's cousin and he disappeared, so I went looking for him. I turned on my flashlight and all I saw was like 3 bats coming straight at my face.
Oh my God.
So that was not fun.
But I think the craziest thing about Waverly that night was not the bats, but it was like what, 2:33 in the morning. The alarm was going off because somebody was trying to break in.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I luckily don't think I've really had any bug encounters on the Queen Mary when we were just walking around, not the main area, like engine room parts. We found one room and it had bugs in it. The only time I've really ever seen bugs there, that was gross. Didn't enjoy that at all. Smelled bad. I was like, Dad, how did you find this? Why are we here? Please leave. Like, it doesn't matter if it's haunted. It smells really bad. Let's go somewhere else in the ship that's haunted.
So for investigating that, like inside the ship, like how hot does it get in there?
It depends. It generally stays pretty cool because it is metal. So, I mean, usually it's a lot cooler than the outside. If you're walking the main decks, the top part, the observation deck, that can get pretty warm because they have like overhead fans, but it's all basically like canopied in, and since it's not sailing, there's no like drafts going through. So that part can get pretty warm.
Next, I remember back in last July, I was up in Duluth, Minnesota, investigating the William A. Irvin iron ore ship with Gray Duck Paranormal. And the day we were in Duluth, it was about 85, 88 degrees or whatever. Inside that ship, it was probably about 130 degrees.
Oh my God.
We were sweating like you wouldn't believe. It was like ungodly hot in there. Hottest I've ever been.
That would run me out faster than the ghosts for sure. And that's when you're hoping you'll see a ghost so you get a cold spot and can actually get relief.
Right. But
Come a little closer.
at least they had one part of the ship where you could go that had air conditioning, like the gift shop. But yeah, when you were down the bowels of that ship, whew.
Yeah, the Queen Mary, I think, pretty luckily doesn't have that. I don't like you go at night, and so it really cools down at night during the summer. So I don't think it's usually that warm on the inside. But yeah, the top deck does get pretty warm during the day.
Well, I'll have to make a trip down there to experience the coolness of investigating a ship.
And maybe it's all the ghosts, and that's when you're like, oh, is there more of you? More cold spots.
Right.
It's 130 degrees in here.
So when you're investigating, like what kind of equipment do you use, and do you have a favorite piece of equipment?
Yeah, so I use really like recently I used the dead bell, the spirit candles. I got super good results with those. So I really enjoyed having those and working with them. I really like kind of any piece of equipment that I can get really instantaneous responses. Like when I lived in a haunted house, my mom had heard our dog barking because our animals would actually react to the spirits there. So she grabbed an EVP recorder, and then when she listened back later, the spirit had said, "Who are you?" And the one thing she says is, "I wish I had known it had said that in the moment, so I could have answered and responded." So I like equipment where I can actually have that dialogue in real time instead of capturing something and then having to go sift through evidence, and then you don't find out that they're asking you something until 3 days later and you can't even respond. So spirit candles, dead bell, Ovulus. I know the DR60 does pretty good job of real time. I don't have one, but just like any piece of equipment that I can have that back and forth. I used dowsing rods a lot when I was younger. I used them for like the first time again in years recently. So really anything that I can have that open conversation with the ghosts and not have to find out 3 days later.
Yeah. So for like, we just recently got a dead bell and it's sitting behind on our my
Mhm.
dresser back there. So like, what are your experiences with that, and kind of a rundown of how that works? So we haven't even used it yet.
Yeah, so I mean, it works pretty much just like an EMF. You just set it down, and then when a ghost comes near it, it'll set it off. I can't talk too much about the experience because that happened at Edith Wharton's, and
Okay.
that's part of a project, but we got incredible responses. It was so intelligent. The ghost was literally responding with the bell rings. It was every time we would say the name of the spirit we thought was in the room, the bell would go off. It was incredibly intelligent, and we had to turn it off at one point because it was like we couldn't do EVP sessions. It was too much. It was
Hmm.
constant. We turned down the sensor on it. It still went off like crazy, so we did actually have to turn it off at one point just to do stuff, but I used it in tandem with the spirit candles, and it was like one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. It was my first time using it, but it worked amazing. It was such a good piece of equipment.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was pretty excited to get it. I had to wait a little bit because it kept, wasn't in stock, and
Hmm.
finally managed to get it.
Yeah, I would definitely say that you'll probably enjoy it a lot, because it's a good piece of equipment. I shipped it up to Massachusetts through UPS though, because I didn't think I could probably explain that one to TSA, and I didn't want to try.
Yeah, I'm sure they're
Didn't want
probably
to try.
like all this different equipment. They're probably just like racking their brains, like, what is this stuff?
Well, and if you brought it in carry-on, like the bell just, it moves in general. So I'm like, yeah, I don't really need a bell going off in the middle of a plane. I'm just
All
gonna
right,
leave
like when I
it,
was taking it out of the
ship
box when we
it.
got it, it went off a couple times. I'm like,
Hmm.
my youngest son was like, "Wait, did you get a dead bell?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah, so that's a good piece of equipment, but definitely one that you should probably, if you're going out of state, ship it beforehand. If anyone can tell me I'm wrong, I really would love you to because I'm scared to take it on a plane.
Yeah, that would be quite the experience.
Yeah, I don't want to argue with TSA. I don't want them to throw it out. So that was my
Yeah.
experience. Worked great. Frightened to take it anywhere.
Okay, I'll take note of that if we ever go on a plane versus driving. But
It might be fine. I just didn't want to. I haven't
yeah,
flown in like 5 years. I didn't want to argue with TSA. That scares me more than the ghosts.
yeah, definitely. So for this year, what are your plans for any investigations coming up? Any other, great podcast guests on the horizon?
Yeah, so my show used to be live every Saturday. Now it's pre-recorded. So we just recently recorded a show with psychic Angela Thomas, which will be airing this Saturday. We have upcoming psychic Erica Busarhaney. We're booking a lot more guests right now. We kind of had to readjust since it's a little bit like starting from scratch, since we're on a new platform. But it's I think a lot better, and the audio quality is a lot better. So you guys can check that out on the Ghost Host on Spotify. We have some archive shows, some recent shows, that I think a lot of people would really enjoy. Investigations, I don't have anything planned right now because I did just get back from Edith Wharton's house in January. And that was a project I worked on. It's kind of my baby. So I needed a brain break. And when I got back from Massachusetts, I had the flu for 3 weeks. So as much as I love the paranormal, I'm trying to be normal me outside of my radio show. I'm like, I need a brain break.
Right.
But hopefully I'll be able to plan some more investigations soon and continue getting out there with my friends. Like I said, we worked on a project it was written about in the Berkshire Eagle, our investigation at Edith Wharton's. I investigated there with historian Robert Oakes, psychic April Doucette, and investigator, aka the Haunted Raven, Drew Babineau. And that was really great. It was my first investigation on the East Coast. It was in the snow, so that was really cool too, because I don't get that here. And so it was a lot of fun, but definitely need to decompress from all the research.
Right. Yeah, we got Drew joining us on our podcast in about a month, I think.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I've been messaging him a lot, and yeah, he seems pretty cool.
Yeah, he's super great. He did the investigation with me there. April was like super on point about like all the stuff there. And Robert is just an amazing historian. He's done tours at the mounts for years and he's a really great guy. So I was very lucky to do that. And then with my radio show, there's some archives of all three of them on there. And yeah, like I said, planning more things now that we are pre-recording shows. I can now get international guests back on because when I started my show, we were able to do that, and then there was a problem with Skype, and that
Right.
went away. So I'm very, very excited about this new format, so we can kind of go back to the roots a little bit and get to see some investigators from different continents, different countries, which to me is like the most exciting because I really love to hear, different cultures and different backgrounds and hear their personal experiences, but also their connection.
Yeah, yeah, we have one, I believe it's March 14th or March 15th, actually, from down in Australia.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's gonna be it's gonna be what, 7 o'clock our time, and I think it's like 4 or 5 in the afternoon their time on Saturday. So it'll be kind of interesting because they're a day ahead of us.
Yeah. I don't think they're scared of anything. They have these giant spiders.
Right? Yeah.
So they have this
Okay.
giant, like everything, like lizards, spiders, insects. So I don't
Yeah.
think ghosts probably
Yeah, probably a spider's about the
anything.
size of a REM pod or a dead bell down there.
No.
I'm good.
Yeah, no. That's just a no for me. Like, just no.
Yeah. But yeah, we have a lot, as I said, we got a lot of great podcast guests coming up, and there's a mystery one that I'm not letting everybody know about yet, but this one's going to be, well, she
I
knows,
know.
but this is going to be a very big podcast guest. This person has over 88,000 followers on Instagram.
Awesome. That's
So
super cool.
that'll be a big one. And then a lot of great investigations and events. And who knows what else is going to pop up yet? It's still early.
For sure. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm decompressing from everything that just came up at the beginning of the year, and I'm excited to see what comes up for the rest of the year. Until then, doing my radio show and enjoying a break from travel.
Yes. And for us, we're just about to start traveling. Our first investigation is in about a month. And then over 2 weeks, we'll be investigating 4 locations,
Mhm.
heading out to South Dakota for a first, and then down to Iowa and Illinois, and then a little break, and then before we head out east.
I mean, that's fun. I mean, investigating is always a great experience. I mean, you never know what you're gonna get, and that's kind of the most fun about it.
Yeah. So yeah, we're looking forward to this year and seeing what mischief we can get into along the way, and going back to some locations that Natalie and I have been to last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think revisiting locations really brings a lot too, because, seeing if you get the same responses, seeing what you get different. I know the Queen Mary in the engine room, like every time you go, I haven't been in a while. I did investigation there with the Dark Zone during COVID, but we didn't go in the engine room. But like every time in the past you would go there, you could hear someone like audibly talking, but you could never tell what they were saying, and it was like just the craziest thing. I would say that's my favorite room in the Queen Mary is because it's just so palpable, like what you can capture.
Yeah, well, like when I was on the Irvin last July, so like Grady and Griffin of Grey Duck, the three of us were like in the it's kind of like a not really a dining room area, but it was like a more
Mhm.
boardroom. And it was like right off the kitchen, and all of a sudden you hear somebody take a deep breath and a sigh in the kitchen, and they go, "Was that you?" I'm like, "No." I go, "That came from the kitchen," but there was like somebody right in front of the camera just sighed and breathed really loud, and we
Hmm.
caught that on camera. It's just like, okay, there's nobody else around us, but it was like so audible, it was insane.
Yeah, it's crazy what you can capture. Like in the Queen Mary 2 by the they have like a box, the propeller room. It's like a box around the propeller so you can see it. You can hear people whistling too, and there's no one around. And it's just like the craziest thing, I think, when you can like actually like tangibly hear something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have anything else on my end. I don't know if Chad or Laurel or Natalie does.
Mm-mm. You asked her all my questions.
I asked all your questions. Okay.
Had any crazy off the wall experiences at any of the places?
Yeah, I would say my craziest was besides the dead bell, that one was like awesome. Uh the Queen Mary pool area, when I investigated with Ghost Adventures, there's a shadow figure in the first class swimming pool area, and I call him the Shadow Man. And usually, when you go into the Queen Mary pool area, it has low, dim lighting. And that was the first night I'd ever been in there with like pitch black, no light. And I swear to God, the Shadow Man got like more powerful. He was in like multiple places at once.
Huh.
Which I don't even know how that's possible. Like I can't explain that. It sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to me. But it was really something, and I've never seen a spirit kind of like grow in power like that based on pitch black versus there being light. And then when I was at the Glen Tavern Inn, like my absolute craziest experience, I wasn't investigating. And I love old movies, and the Glen Tavern Inn, for some reason, has like old movie posters lining the hallways. So I wanted to go look at them. So on the first floor to the right-hand side, when you walk in, there is a hallway with hotel rooms. And so my mom and I were going down there looking at the posters. And every step I took, my throat was getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And I just thought, okay, I don't want to know what happens when I get to the end of the hall. So I told my mom, I'm like, hey, this is happening and I want to turn back. She goes, I'm gonna go ask what happened here. And I'm like, please don't, because I was trying to be normal. I didn't want to know. So she goes up to the front desk attendant, who is Brandon Alvis, and from Opera and Haunted Discoveries. And he goes, oh, she goes, what happened down that hallway? And he goes, oh, the groundskeeper hung himself 5 years earlier on the floor above.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah, so that one was quite weird. I would say another one is uh again, I've had like crazy experiences while I'm not investigating. I was at a party at David Oman's house. He's about 500 feet from where the Manson murders took place. I was sitting there with my friend and I had the Ghost Radar app on. And we were just like messing around. We weren't investigating. And it said pig, which is what the Manson family wrote in blood
Hmm.
on the doors. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to turn it off because when I'm investigating, I don't want creepy stuff to happen to me. So that one was like, okay, I don't know what's saying this to me, and they're a little too crazy for me, the Manson family. So that was good.
Uh,
I was totally fine on that one.
yeah, I've seen some different stuff on the documentaries about the Manson family. They're
Yeah,
definitely
so
different.
I was like, I don't know what spirit is saying this through the ghost radar, so I just closed out the app. I was like, oh, nope, good.
Yeah. Well, it's
But
kind of
those
like
were,
go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say those are like my top three craziest experiences, but I would still put the Glen Tavern in like at the top because to kind of feel your throat tightening and then find out someone hung themselves is like kind of on another level.
Yeah, it was kind
Yeah.
of like one of our experiences back last summer was just her and I at the
Hmm.
Boyd House. We're doing a spirit box session, and then the spirit box
I remember what
she got Jesus, and then shortly after that, devil.
Is that
Oh
what
wow.
Yeah, so it's just like, okay, yep. She goes,
Yeah.
I'm done with that.
I swear it said something.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Jesus and
It was
devil.
Jesus and something else.
I thought it was a devil or Satan.
Yeah, that's
It was
what it
Satan.
was. That's what it was.
Same thing. And that was like shortly after that. Then the 10 o'clock tornado siren went off, and then, yep, she tapped out.
I wasn't feeling good, and my head hurt. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, number one thing is just know your limits. Don't push yourself past because that's where problems start to happen. So it's
Yep.
good you knew that and decided to remove yourself from that situation.
And then, like, as soon as we left there, like 5-10 minutes later, she felt fine.
Hmm. Yeah, it's weird how that happens in locations. The Queen Mary Pool area dressing room can make people dizzy, nauseous. There's a place like that in Edith Wharton Stables. I let Drew go up there. I already knew that, so I was like, "Oh, he doesn't. He can go. I know too much. I don't need confirmation bias." I don't think he had that experience, but I'm like, can't let any of this be tainted. Also, I don't want to feel dizzy in a stable in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it's one of those weird things, I guess, with portals or vortexes or whatever, is how they can affect people.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's what I was wondering if it was in the stable.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was based on some of the responses we got. And in the Queen Mary Pool area dressing rooms, that's what they call it, is like the vortex or portal down there. And it definitely, just stepping into that certain area, you can feel a difference. It's really weird. It's very weird.
Sure. A lot of places like that, they're just supercharged with energy.
Definitely. And it's just figuring out, what's best and what maybe isn't the best to go investigating.
Yeah, so you started at 8, you're
Mhm.
25 now. What keeps you in love with investigating the paranormal and talking to people or with people about it?
Well, I'm a very curious person, just naturally. So I love learning, especially recently. I've really just fallen in love with learning about the history and the lives of the people themselves. That's really what drew me to Edith Wharton's house, was being able to learn about her as an individual, not so much her writing or her works, but her and her story. And I think that's the fascinating thing about the paranormal, is these were people too. And so
Mhm.
learning about them and their story and hearing from them is so important. But also, I live in the city. I live in California, and the Queen Mary is an awesome location, but that's kind of like one of the few unique things here. So going to places like an abandoned asylum or a Victorian house, things that I don't see every day, for me is always interesting because the architecture or the things that I wouldn't experience normally is fun. And also, I'm traumatized from my haunted house. So I figured, why not stick with it? The drama's still going to be there.
Right.
Yeah. It's great. I'm trauma bonded to the paranormal is essentially what it is.
There
Uh,
you go.
It's great. It's a wonderful thing. Yeah, the ghost of my house must have just been like, I'll just give her lifelong trauma and then she'll make this her life, and it's like, thanks. Very
yeah,
helpful.
it worked.
Probably could have done that without the trauma, but that's what the cards are.
Well, I'm sure this one here will be going when she's 25 yet. I'm sure you will.
No.
I'll see. Yeah, you're only 11. I don't think you're going to go away from it. You're too addicted. Watch it, research it, investigate it. You're good. You're hooked.
She's gotta track down Sam and Colby, so she still
Uh,
still has a mission.
Well,
I'm not stopping till I
no,
get
we're
them on
not stopping.
podcast
Hey,
or
they did
something.
buy Farrar, which is only about 4 hours away from us. So,
Never know. Oh my gosh. When we were
oh
coming
yeah,
back from Waverly, he had found out that they bought Ferrari before like they even I don't even know.
Yeah, I found out before
Yeah.
a lot of people found out because I just have my ways of going about things.
So we were driving back from Waverly Hills and we decided to stop there. And we were talking, what was his name?
I can't remember the groundskeeper there.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but he was out there, and I was wearing their merch, and he was talking to my dad, and then me and my mom's cousin were doing like a walk around the building to see what it looked like. And he came back and he noticed that I was wearing their merch, and he had told me that the day before we got there, they were there filming. So they left literally the day before we
Yeah,
got
we
there.
missed them probably by like 12 hours, if
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I chased a YouTuber down on the Queen Mary once. I missed him by like 15 or 20 minutes. So that was the thing. He's scandalous now though, so I'm probably a little glad I missed him. But yeah, I remember that. Gotta go to a haunted location, find a YouTuber, then they are just narrowly gone.
But yeah, last was it August? We did get to meet Chelsea Layton.
That was right before we went from the.
Oh yeah, it was right before we went to Waverly.
So it was end of July. Yeah. That was really cool.
They're super great team. I mean, it's been a lot of fun getting to interview them and just see how it's progressed from, the documentary to TV to YouTube and just them going to these locations. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, Chelsea, she actually lives down in my hometown, so my mom kind of gets to see her every once in a while in the grocery store she works at, and we've driven by Chelsea's house. It is a pretty nice house. So it's just nice knowing that I got like, a famous paranormal person that lives in my hometown.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty good. And yeah, I mean she's an optometrist, so I would expect her to, be able to have that nice setup.
Yeah, yeah, because I had to get glasses again, so she's actually my eye doctor now. So
yeah, and we're gonna go see her again.
Yeah, we'll be down there in about a month because my youngest daughter has to go get an eye exam, and she's kind of a little jittery about things. So I'm like, Mom, we'll go see Chelsea because then you might cooperate a little
Then
bit.
she
Might cooperate is a key word.
might.
Yeah, I used to wear glasses, so I know the feeling. I got LASIK though, so now I can see pretty well.
Yeah, I got LASIK, but they always said once you hit a certain age, you'll have to get glasses again, and it's like I don't need them all the time, but it does help.
Yeah, my dad had it too, and he has the readers and stuff now. But I'm still pretty good on that end, so
Oh yeah,
I can see
you're
pretty
young.
well.
You got a ways to go.
I can see pretty well, and my mom's super happy. She hated dealing with my father's glasses, and she hated dealing with my glasses. I had a septoplasty and rhinoplasty because I had a deviated septum, and afterwards I was like, well, maybe I'll get my eyes fixed. I said maybe. My mom heard yes, and she was like, okay, I'll start looking around. I'm like, what? I didn't say that. Said I'll think about it. She heard think meant yes, so I have LASIK now.
Yeah, that's how parents are. Right?
She was like, anything to get rid of the glasses.
But yeah, the main reason I got rid of my glasses and got LASIK done is because, wrestling around with the kids when they were younger and not worrying about them getting broken and
Also, it's my fault.
Basically, yeah, it was your fault.
Yeah, my dad got it because his glasses would always break. I'm not even sure how, to be honest. And my mom just had enough. She's like, "No, we're going." And then I got it because the contacts would always just make me tired after a certain amount of time, and didn't want to have to travel with like stacks of contacts. So I was like, okay. It's something that can actually allow me to investigate without being tired at like 12 hours after wearing the contacts.
Yeah.
They say wear for 16. They don't mean that. It made me tired after 12.
Yeah. But yeah, like right when you jumped in, this one decided to hit me in the head with a stuffed animal, and it's like, really? Come on. I got glasses.
You said I cracked his glass.
Well, they feel a little weird now.
Oh, you're fine. You're just dramatic.
Oh, shush.
I'm sure my dad would definitely relate to that entire interaction.
But I love her.
Yeah.
Sometimes she's my op.
Oh,
Mhm.
I had to throw that word in there.
okay.
Life with a middle schooler.
I don't think it gets any better at 25, to be honest.
You have like 10 work children, so
No, 12 work children.
close
Get it
enough.
right. Anyways, Laurel, you want to do your end of the podcast? Unless anybody has anything else?
Nope. I'm good.
What was that?
All right, Sophia. So now's your chance to plug any socials you want our viewers to know about and mention anything you want linked in the description if I can find it.
Okay, yeah, for sure. You guys can check me out. We have some past interviews archived on YouTube, the Ghost Host Sophia Temperilli. You can find me on Facebook, Sophia Temperilli, Twitter at Sophia Temperilli with one L. You can also follow the show at Ghost Host Show. You can like the Facebook page, Ghost Host Sophia Temperilli. Instagram at Sophia Temperilli. We are now on Spotify, so you can look up the Ghost Host and you will find my podcast there now. Like I said, we have some really great past guests on there. Basically having to start over since Blog Talk collapsed, and we have some really great upcoming guests. So I hope you guys check out my show and enjoy it. And like you guys were mentioning earlier in the show, you can read my article in Ghost Magazine. It was issue number 3, the Penhurst edition. You can buy Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal, Women on the Fringe. Um, yeah, you can read about my investigation I recently did in the Berkshire Eagle about my work that I did at Edith Wharton's The Mount.
All right, sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys.
Yes, thank you for being
Thank
on.
you.
We enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Stay warm down there. We'll try to stay warm up here. Different kind of warm.
I think that'll be too hard around here. I can actually go tanning next week, so I
Oh,
lose the
Lord.
paranormal and gamer pale. I can look tan, I just don't. Both my hobbies include no light.
And we'll be having 40-degree weather here next week, so
It's gonna be a heat wave.
windows open,
Yeah.
shorts, sandals, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Crazy to think 40 above from Fred. Yeah, darn near 40 below.
Right? It's going to be a heat wave.
Yeah.
All right.
Good luck with that in the
Yes.
snow, and I will make sure to warm the AC up on my end.
All right. All right. Everybody have a great night.
Yep, you too.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Yep,
Bye.
bye.
This has been Nightmare Stories of the Other Side, a production of Nightmare Explorers.